Hi all, it's Rambler here with a quick update to say videos will resume tomorrow night onwards, so I'm not doing one tonight per se. But before I do close off, I just thought I'd give my thoughts and opinions on the new film Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which I unexpectedly saw this evening. And I wanted to talk about it because I've heard mixed opinions about it. Some people absolutely love it, some people won't necessarily hate it, but they just think it's very weak in general. And some people seem to think that as a result of what I just said previous, trying to turn it into a 5-movie franchise is going to be impossible. But honestly to God, and I'm not going to spoilers yet, I'll let you know when I'm going to spoilers, I thought it was a good film. I genuinely liked the film. I didn't think it was great, but it definitely wasn't bad, and out of the Harry Potter-esque films, it's certainly a lot better than like the last, 3 or 4 Harry Potter films. They were awful. Especially the last 2, the Deathly Hallows. I mean, Jesus. But this film is way better than that. And what's good about it is you don't really need to have watched Harry Potter films or read the books to get this film. Although there are a few references made in the film that might leave some people scratching their heads going, what? But there's enough there for you to keep interested, and it's quite a pacey film. Although it's long, but it's a pacey film with enough plot and focus in it to keep you interested, but not too much that you get overloaded. And as a result, it keeps the film on a good footing. I really liked it. I liked the fact that it's a nice, simple film. It really is a simple film. There's the plot is very predictable, and when it does happen, you know it's coming. But even so, there's a certain charm about it where usually I get very upset and annoyed by things like that. But with this film, I wasn't. It was all right. I rolled with it. I suppose an example I can think of that matches this film is Johnny English. When you watch Johnny English, you can see the jokes coming from a mile away. But when they happen, you still laugh and enjoy them because they're done so well. Well, that's what this film was like, even though you could see the plot points and the twists and what have you, you didn't mind. You wanted to see it. It wasn't like as if you were thinking, oh God, get on with it. Yeah, I've seen it, right? Okay, cool, of course, this movie. No, it's nothing like that. You're watching it thinking, okay, it's going to happen, but I want to see where it goes type thing. I want to see how it's done. You're interested. And that's really good. I like the main character. I can't remember his name though. That's the only thing. Newt Smedley or something like that. I forget. But the guy who wrote the book Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the main character, Eddie Redmayne's character, basically. I like him. A lot of people have criticised him for being quite weak in the character development, and that's not necessarily Eddie Redmayne's fault. That would be down to the writing and the directing. And they say, there's not really enough character development with him. There's not really much of a character arc. And to be fair, I agree to that point, but at the same time, I don't agree all the way, because yes, he is a very quiet character. He doesn't say very much, and you don't really get to know him that well, and he doesn't really develop as a character throughout the film. But at the same time, there's a moment in the film where you really do get to see why he is the way he is in a very subtle way, and it's again predictable, cliche, could be considered trite, but I thought it was nice. I thought it was nice. It was nicely done. It was very softly done, and it made me think. Actually, yeah, at first I did find him annoying, and I thought, oh God, he's going to be really pansy and just I'm new and I'm a bit eccentric. But actually, after a while, you're like, I like this guy. No, I get it. I get why he's eccentric. I get it. He's an introvert type character. He doesn't say much, doesn't reveal much, but what is revealed kind of gives you a taste as to what might be to come with him or why he is the way he is. And that's what I really liked about this film. There's loads of little hints to say why things are the way they are, but it's not overbearing. It doesn't go into a full-on explanation for it. It's just hints, and then it rolls on. And if you're someone, again, who hasn't watched or read any of the Harry Potter books or know about the Harry Potter universe, those hints might come and go and you might not catch them at first, which is fair enough. I suppose that is a weakness of the movie. But not enough for you to think, oh God, I'm completely lost, I don't get it. It's a really simple film with a really simple plot, and therefore a lot of people can access it. And I think that's a good thing. Because I honestly thought that with the last few Harry Potter books and stuff, the plot just got so stupid. And then I really hated the 7th book, and I hated the 7th movies, or the last Harry Potter films. Apart from the ending was good in both cases, I thought, or at least good enough. But the actual plot of the 7th books and all that was just shite. Honestly, I really hated it. But this film just goes for nice, simple. It's something different. Still in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. But here's a taste of it, and then hopefully if there's more movies to come, we'll see a bit more depth into it. And I think that's fine, I like movies that are quite simple and just sort of like, here's a taste of what's to come and here's a basic plot. But, as long as you make it likeable and funny enough or quirky enough or interesting enough that you keep up with it, then there's no harm in that. It's a harmless film, this film. I honestly have to say it's a harmless film. It's worth a watch. repeatability or rewatchability is not high, but it's not low either. You'll probably watch it in a few years' time and think, oh yeah, that was alright. And that's it. But it's not a bad film by any means. And like I said, I like the main character. The supporting characters are nothing special. Again, they're pretty cookie cut out, if that makes sense. Like, they're not really original or anything, but they're likable. There's I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who plays Jacob, who's the comic relief character, he's cool. He's not great, but he's cool, and he's just a basic comic relief guy. But you feel for him, you like him, you want him to do well, you feel for him throughout the film. He's just got a simple likability about him where you think, yeah, all right, I get him. Okay, I'll go with him. The female lead, or the sort of female supporting lead of the main character, is not great. I mean, again, it's not the actress's fault per se, it's just the way she's written. She's not brilliant and a bit wet. But not, again, harmless, you know, just serve a point in the film, and you do feel for her and her vulnerabilities and stuff, and her wanting to sort of try and achieve more about herself and all that. That's fine. Again, it's nothing special, but it's like, she's alright, she's a bit wet, that's all. Her sister, on the other hand, though, who comes across as a sort of like a complete opposite to her. She's like a sort of Marilyn Monroe-esque type of lady, very sexy, very drool, but at the same time actually very sweet and very honest. She's great, and not because she's sexy, it's because she comes across that way. You think, oh, she's one of those sort of like sexy, hey boys, how's it going? But then it turns out actually she's just a very sweet, naive woman who's falls for the comic relief character, but you like her, and again, you like her because she's this sweet character, and she's got this ability where she can read minds and stuff, so she's got a little bit of depth to her. So she's kind of like the one that sort of pieces the plot together, or gives the audience the plot background details to some of the characters. But it works. It's nice. She's nice, and the ending with her and the secondary character is nice as well. So I liked her. So the supporting cast for the most part is alright. The bad guy in it is weak, but interesting. And there's two bad guys. There's one who you see in the beginning of the film and at the end of the film, and he's alright. And then the other bad guy, who's like the main point of the film, I liked him again because he's simple, and he's quite a tragic character. And again, it's a simple character, but you feel for him. You know, you do feel for him. You think, oh Christ, you know. Again, could be solved with a few simple remedies, but other than that, no, it's fine. You know, again, it's simple, but it works. And the Wizarding World is in America this time as opposed to Britain, and again, it's all right. It's interesting. Slightly different from the British world in terms of the fact they have different laws, and they tend to keep themselves away from the humans, and not with the humans and the witches and wizards in Britain depicted in the Harry Potter books. They're allowed to be a little bit more integral, to a certain degree. No, they're like completely like seal themselves away to protect themselves, but it's done well again. You know, it's simple. It's enough for you to think that there's some ongoing problem here and there, but overall, you're like, yeah, okay, there's just the flash that you get is good enough. And that's pretty much it in terms of non-spoiler territory. I mean, I suppose I've spoiled some of it a little bit, but not enough for you to think, oh, I don't know the whole story. But I will go into specific spoiler territory now. I'd like to go into more details. So this is spoiler territory now. So if you haven't seen the film yet and you want to go see it, stop listening to this, go see it. If you have seen it, carry on listening. If you haven't seen it but you don't really care for seeing it, or you just don't care and you want to hear me say it, then by all means carry on. So yeah, spoiler territory. So yeah, the plot is, again, very simple. The main character, he has his suitcase full of beasts. He's come to America to primarily, apparently, release this one beast into the wild, which is a bit of a weak excuse for him to come to America, because you kind of think at some point, there's a point in the film we'll get to where you think, wait, why are you releasing him? He's quite happy where he is, but whatevers. And there's some sort of ulterior motive to him coming there, but it's very weak and very rarely developed. But anyway, he comes to America, Eddie Redmayne's character, to do this thing, and he goes on the boat, he gets off the boat, and go through customs and stuff. There's a bit of a comic relief with his suitcase keeps trying to spring open all the time. He hasn't got a very good lock on it. And then he makes his way to a bank, a New York bank, and in front of this bank is this group of people, this gathering, listening to this woman, and this woman is like the head of this sort of like anti-witch movement, anti-wizard movement. They're kind of like, you know, witch hunter type movements. And you know, Eddie Redmayne sort of like gets sort of tangled up in the audience and what have you, and then all of a sudden his suitcase pops open because it keeps trying to open, and one of his creatures comes out, and it's like this little like mole-like creature, and it tries to, and basically it's harmless, but it likes to steal shiny things, so like a magpie, but think of it as a mole. And basically he goes after it and runs through the bank, and he's completely naive about his surroundings. He's just focusing about getting this creature. So there's this bit of comic relief in there, and you're introduced to the comic relief character called Jacob, who's at the bank as well. And the reason why they get tied together is because they've got the same suitcase. So a bit cliche, but you think, oh, whatever, it's harmless enough. And at one point they get the suitcases mixed up, so that's why the comic relief character sort of gets caught up in the film. It's weak, but it works. You know, you just think, oh, whatever. And the comic relief character's there because he wants to open up his own bakery, and apparently he works in a canning factory. He's not happy. He wants to open up his own bakery, but he doesn't have any collateral, so he can't get this loan he wants. So he has this meeting with the banker. The banker's like, "Do you have any collateral?" And he says, "Well, I was in the military. I served my time." And he goes, "Did you know that machines can make bakery products far quicker than you, hundreds a second? Do you really think without collateral we'll invest in you? Good day, sir." So you think, yeah, typical asshole banks, but you think, well, fair enough. It's modern capitalism. So he gets disappointed, and Eddie Redmayne sort of bumps into him rudely, and then he sees him, and they both wait in the bank, really, because Eddie Redmayne is trying to get this creature. And then, anyway, there's this chase thing where he's trying to get this creature, and he's like jumping around the bank and stuff, and then there's a bit of a kerfuffle where he gets mixed up with Jacob, and then they're trying to catch this creature, but this creature is nicking all these pennies and like gadgets and shiny things out of people's purses and bags and like all around jewelry and stuff like that. It can somehow hide all of it in its pouch. It's got like it hides it in the fur of its belly, and it's got like a time space thing where basically it looks like he's just cramming it all in, and he is, but he's not getting any faster or bigger. So yeah, and eventually Eddie Redmayne has to chase him down to the vaults where he's got into a vault and he's trying to steal money, and Jacob's character follows him, and then the bank manager comes down and says, "What are you two doing here?" "You're trying to rob the bank." And then he sets the alarm off, and then, oh no, there's a chase thing going on. And then Eddie Redmayne opens the vault up with the spell, is it Alohomora? Can't remember. And he opens it up with the unlocking spell, and then gets the creature. And he shakes the creature, so all the jewellery and stuff falls out, so he doesn't take it all with him, he just shakes it all and puts them in the suitcase. And then he has to teleport or apparate himself and Jacob away from the scene. And he does, and then they walk away. And it turns out that some of the creatures have escaped from his suitcase when he got there, so it wasn't just the mole, there was a few others that have escaped, so he has to go get them. And that's pretty much it. But then what happens is before, what he does is Jacob, the comic relief who's with him during this thing in the bank, mixes the suitcases up and just tells him to F off and runs off before Eddie Redmayne can use obliterate, which is a memory wiping spell. And he just watches him. He's like, oh well. And then you get introduced to the lead female role, who's been watching Eddie Redmayne and following him throughout the bank in the background. And it turns out that it works for the Ministry of Magic of America, and she's going to arrest him. So she does. But it turns out that she can't do anything about it because she used to be an aura, but has been demoted for some reason. So even though she wants to take him in and prove a point, they just ignore her, and then she ends up just having to try and give him one permit. In other words, she used to be someone who was in the investigatory team, but she's lost her job and she's trying to get back on the team. So you're like, oh, okay, fair enough. So she takes Eddie Redmayne's character in, and there's a bit of banter and all that. And it turns out that the ministry's getting upset because they're worried that there's a few things. There's some sort of creature on the loose in America that's doing some destructive powers, and basically they're worried that if it doesn't get contained, then the revelation of wizards and witches will be revealed to the American non-magic folk, who they call no-mages, whereas in Harry Potter they call them muggles, and they make a light reference to it, but whatever. And basically they're worried that there's this creature that's been released, and or there's a creature about in New York that's causing problems and it's killing people and stuff, and they're like, oh, if we don't contain this, we're in trouble. And then it turns out then that Eddie Redmayne and Jacob, they sort of team up together because they end up boarding, and this woman eventually, who can't arrest him, takes him out and then decides to let Eddie Redmayne share a room with her and her sister, and that's when you get introduced to the Marilyn Monroe sister character. And then from then on, it is just a really simple case of, I've got to go get my beasts back. So you see a lot of comic relief scenes with Jacob and Eddie Redmayne trying to get these beasts, and he's letting them come with him because he likes him. That's as weak as that. But there's also a kerfuffle at the beginning of the film where when Jacob goes back to his house and he's depressed because he hasn't got his loan for the bakery, that's when he realises the suitcase he's got is the mixed up one. It pops open and a creature comes out and bites him on the neck, and apparently it could cause him some problems. So that's one of the reasons why they take Jacob with him as well. It's because he's been bit by this magical creature, and it might cause some disturbing reactions. So that's another reason why Eddie Redmayne sort of takes him with him, is to help him get past that, so the bite doesn't do anything, which he does. And there's a really cool aspect in the film where the suitcase he has is where he keeps all of his beasts, but they're not sort of like kept in containers or anything. The suitcase is like another world, so you can actually go into the suitcase and it reveals this massive world that he's built for these creatures to live in, and each creature's got its own sort of like free world to explore type thing. It's all like massive and like TARDIS type thing from Doctor Who, you know. And it's really cool. And he invites Jacob down into the suitcase to feed these creatures, and that's when he sees to his bite wound and says, look, I'll give you something, it'll get rid of it or whatever. And then they sort of bond on that case. He uses him to help him feed the creatures and look after them for a bit, and then he says, right, I've got to go after and get these creatures because they've gone missing, when his suitcase kept popping open at the beginning of the film. And that's it. But it turns out that, yeah, while that's going on, and, you know, there's not really much more to it than that, this dark force that's going around, possibly attacking people, well, is attacking people. And there's quite a few grim scenes with this dark force when it kills people. There's a few grim scenes that aren't... I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there's like this anti-witching movement I mentioned earlier outside of this bank. Well, they're actually pretty important because it's led by this woman who hates wizards and witches, and she's got like this orphanage place where kids who are off homeless or on the streets can come in and get soup in exchange for sending out these leaflets to say, you know, join our cause, stop the witches and wizards. And even though I think the wizards and witches community in New York have managed to make sure that they're not revealed to the public, there has been a history of them being burnt and all that sort of stuff with the witch hunting thing. Not to say burnt, that's a bit harsh, but the witch hunting thing and the history is kind of like tied to it. So yeah, they're still worried about this witch hunting group, but led by this woman. And this woman, she lives in this orphanage with this younger lad who she's adopted, and this young girl. And there's like scenes of them together and all that. And it turns out this woman is quite evil, but I wouldn't say evil, but she's very harsh. She really hates magic. And this one lad she's adopted, he's kind of like, I don't know, like an Igor type character. He's like not hunchbacked per se, but he's like a bit nervous and it looks really weird and, you know, not socially awkward and stuff. She really treats him harshly and beats him whenever he does something wrong, for like really the smallest of things. It's really nasty. Like, you don't see it, but you see the scenes where she's like, take it off, and he has to take his belt off and give it to her, and then he follows her up the stairs, and then it cuts to the next scene and you think, damn, she's going to beat him with that belt. It's really grim, but you don't see it, but that's why it works. So she's really harsh on him, and the reason why that's important is because in the Ministry there's Colin Firth's character who is introduced, and he's trying to track down this creature that's causing these New Yorkers to die, you know, he's causing chaos and stuff, and he's trying to get leads and what have you, and he uses this lad adopted by this witch hunter as a lead because he thinks this lad knows where this creature is for some reason. It's not really well explained, but you just think, okay, something going on. He thinks he's using him basically, and you can see it from a mile away. He's going to betray him and all that sort of rubbish. But I have to say, I quite like Colin Firth's character in this film. It's a staple villain character, but he's good at playing the villain character. He's all right. He's pretty cool, but doesn't do a lot, but he's still cool. So yeah, so that's going on, and then eventually they do capture all the beasts in the suitcase, and then it turns out one of the beasts in the suitcase that this new guy, this Eddie Redmayne character's got, is called. There's loads of these creatures that you get to see, and they're really cool. They are really cool, and one of them is called an obscurity, and it's a really weird. It's just basically like a black hole in a way type thing. It's like well, I won't say a black hole, but it's like, you know, it's like dark mist in a weird sort of bubble ore thing, and it moves around and stuff. It's mentioned he's got one in his suitcase, and the comic relief character Jacob, when he's helping him out for the first time feeding the creatures, he comes across it and he's like drawn to it, and then Eddie Redmayne's like, no, stay back, this is an obscurity and all that. And it turns out what these creatures are, these like weird dark misty orby things, is the suppressed magic of witches and wizards who were hated for being a witch or a wizard, or who were afraid of being ousted as a witch or a wizard, because they knew that if they were, people would beat them or kill them or hunt them down or what have you. So rather than trying to live with that and use their magic to do their best, they've tried to suppress their magic, but it doesn't work, and it ends up consuming them along with their dark feelings of, you know, I'm a weirdo, I'm a freak, and I can't contain it. They can't suppress their magic to get rid of it, and they end up becoming these weird obscurities. So it's a simple premise, but it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, depressed magicians, depressed witches and wizards who get malicious because the suppression of their magic is to try and make them appear muggle-like or no-mage-like. Doesn't work. And it turns out it's one of these creatures that's out on the loose in New York, and it's mentioned in the film that they haven't seen one for a long time. They believe not to exist anymore, and then it turns out Eddie Redmayne's character is like, oh yeah, I've got one in my suitcase. I've met one before, and they tend to live for about 10 years old, and then they die, and blah 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 blah. So you're like, okay, he knows about them. And there's a really powerful scene where there's like a big dinner happening in this like building in America, in New York, one of those sort of like presidential candidate dinners, and basically this one guy who makes a speech who's going to be like he's a president candidate, and he's like linked to this news mogul who's, it's not really important, but he's there. Well, this obscurity force interrupts them and just outright kills him like that, and it's really quite it's really dark and sudden, and it's really quite quick but really striking, and that's one of the best bits in the film, really. And that's when it becomes a bigger problem. They need to get this creature under control because it's killing too many innocent nomads or muggles, and it kills this very important one. So obviously they're like, uh-oh, poops hit the fan, and they believe it's Eddie Redmayne who's doing it, because they said, oh well, we've been informed he's got this suitcase full of creatures, maybe one of them's escaped and it's causing this problem. So they try to finger it on him, so he gets arrested, put in jail. They separate his suitcase away, and he's like, no, it's not. I have got a few missing, but it's not this thing. And then they present to him the corpses in like this weird misty form. It's like a spirit form of the guy who was killed, this main presidential elect. So it's not really his body, it's just like a ghostly mirage of his corpse, and you can see all the marks and stuff of him when he dies. And Eddie Redmayne looks at it and goes, no, that's not one of my creatures, that's an obscurity. He says, I've got one, but he said, but that's accounted for, that's a different one. And they don't believe him because his obscurities, like I said, have been gone for ages. So they arrest him, and then they arrest the girl that arrested him because they believe that she hasn't told them about it sooner, even though she tried to, but they were horrible to her, blah blah blah. So in the end they get sentenced to death by Colin Firth's character, because he's working in the ministry. But it also hints out that he wants the obscurity for himself, he wants to use it. And they've got another one as well. No, they haven't got another one, sorry. They take out the one that's in Eddie Redmayne's suitcase, and he says, you know what this is, don't you? He goes, yes, it's obscurity, that's the one I've got in my suitcase. And he said, why is it not doing anything? And he says, well, they're useless, they're harmless without their host. They need like a mother figure or like an older one to be with them. And he said, damn, so they're useless then. And he says, well, yeah, why does that concern you that they're useless? And that's when it hints out that Colin Firth's character is the bad guy. And then he sentences them to death, and it's a pretty interesting way how they're going to die. Like, they're in this, like, they get sentenced to this white room, and it's got like a floating chair in it, and there's like this weird pool of stuff. And what happens is they have like a memory taken out of their head, like in the Harry Potter books, like a slither of their memory, and it's put into this pool, and then it makes those memories come to life in a way, and it lures the person in to kill it. It's not a pensive, it's like this other thing. And they take the female lead character and they're going to kill her first, and then it's all quite disturbing and dumb. But it also reveals that she knows this lad who's been what's the word for it, adopted by this witch hunter, and she sees that, or she knows that he gets beaten by her, and she apparently came into contact with him and tried to comfort him, and apparently that was bad, and that's why she lost her job. I don't know. But anyway, that's that. And then Eddie Redmayne is about to get killed, and then he's going to be next, and then he's got like a creature on him that helps him escape, and they break out. And then Jacob and the main female's sister character helps out too, because they detect something's wrong, because the sister character can mind read and stuff, and she knows the sister's about to get executed, so she's like, shit, I've got to do something. And in the end they get the suitcase and stuff, and they band together, and then he's like, they keep saying that it's just, and they flee into his suitcase basically, and he looks after them and gets them to look after the creatures, and then they're saying, look, are you sure this isn't one of yours? And he said, no, it's not, I promise you, I'm not here because of this creature, and it's escaped and I've caused the damage. I'm here to do something else, but I'm quite happy to go and sort this problem out. And then after that it's just the movie goes, oh yeah, we've got a bad guy, oh yeah, we've got to sort this problem out. So in the end it turns out Colin Firth's character is the bad guy, and he's been using this young boy who's been adopted by this witch hunter woman, and then beaten for some reason. And at one point in the film, this other girl that lives with him and this woman, who's the witch hunter, because she's got she's adopted this weird bloke, this weird lad, and this girl as well. It tries to hint out that the girl that's with him is this obscurity, and she goes to beat him. He comes back. Oh no, that's it. He goes to see her, the boy, this lad. He speaks to the girl in her bedroom, and he finds that she's got a wand under her bed, and obviously the witch hunter lady's like, forbidden about magic. So he somehow picks it up and he looks at it and he says, why have you got this? What's all this? And she said, it's harmless, it's a toy, give it back. And he's like, no, you can't, it's too dangerous. And then the witch hunter woman comes in and finds out that he's got this wand in his hand, and she's like, how many times have I told you I hate witches and wizards? And she's going to beat him again with the belt, which he gives to her. And it turns out that this young lad is a wizard, but for some reason she's been suppressing it out of him, and he's trying to suppress it as well, because it may be that she adopted him when her mother was dead or something like that. And that's when he loses it, and and then the girl appears, and then it does all the bad things. The witch hunter gets killed by this obscurity thing, and then he escapes, blah blah blah. And then the Colin Firth's character tracks down the lad who he's been manipulating, and he says, "You know who it is. You know who this obscurity is. Where is she? Where is she?" And in the end, he forces this man to take him to this place where this girl is hidden away. And he's like, and then he says, "Look, you're going to teach me to be a wizard." And Colin Firth betrays him, and then he then sees the little girl, and the little girl's hiding in the corner, and you think, oh right, obscurities, they're this weird suppressed force, they live up to 10, so they're like childlike people. Oh, the girl, she's under 10, so she's got to be it. And he's trying to bring her over to him. She's like, "I'm not going to hurt you, I just want to see what your powers are, I'm going to help you set free." And then it turns out it's not the girl. It turns out that the twist is that it's actually this older chap, the abused boy, the beaten boy. He's the actual obscurity creature. And then basically the rest of the film is just Eddie Redmayne trying to tame the guy, and says, "Look, I can save him, I can take him in my suitcase, he can be alright." And then Colin Firth turns out to be the bad guy, and he's trying to weaponise him for his own ends, and then a big battle and stuff, and that's it. And it turns out that he dies, and then the whole conflict that happens when they're chasing the obscurity and all that, it affects the real world, because the real world sees this conflict happen and then blows buildings up. It doesn't necessarily kill anyone in particular, but everybody starts to notice. So the witches and wizards community of New York are like, shit, we've been found out. You know, they know we're here, we've got to contain it now. And then, oh god, what are we going to do? And it all gets big, and then everything gets blown up and stuff, but nobody gets hurt. And then in the end, they resolve it. They have to kill this obscurity, even though Eddie Redmayne's trying to save him, and the woman that's with him, who knew him, tries to save him. In the end, the witches and wizards of the Ministry of America's Magic come in and kill him. And then Colin Firth's character's like, "Why did you do that? You've just totally ruined our chances of being able to stop hiding and go out there and reveal ourselves, because this entity could be used to help us stay in charge." And the reason why they don't want the witches and wizards Ministry doesn't want to be revealed is because they don't want a war, and they don't want the Muggles to hate them, because they'll be scared of them, and there'll be a war, and then they'll all die, and it'll be horrible. They don't want that. Whereas Colin Firth's character's like, "No, we've got to stop hiding. You know, this law that we've got where we cannot bond with with Muggles or no Mages, is that really to protect us, or is it to protect them?" And then he turns out he's the main bad guy, and they capture him, and Eddie Redmayne helps capture them and stuff, and that's it. And then in the end, they're like, well, it doesn't really matter now. We've managed to stop this obscurity. There's no more deaths, but everybody's seen it now, and there's no way we can get everybody's memory wiped. It's just too many humans or too many Muggles or too many No-Mages have seen it. And then Eddie Redmayne's like, "It's all right, I've got a way," and he reveals he's got this bird creature who he was going to release earlier. That was his main reason for going to America, was to release this bird creature into the wild. He brings him out and he says, "Well, I was going to take you to the desert, but I can't now. You'll have to do it here. But could you do me a favour before you do, and spread this stuff around in the rain and make everybody forget?" So the bird creature does it. Everybody forgets, apart from obviously the wizards and witches and wizards, but all the Muggle people sort of like who are looking and watching all of this, they all look in the rain falls on them, and then they forget everything. So it's all solved. And while they're forgetting everything, the Ministry witches and wizards start fixing everything up, so it looks like nothing's happened. And so in the end, they said, "Oh, we're sorry." You know, the head of the American Ministry of Magic, this woman, this female president of the American Magic, whatever, she says, "Oh, I'm really sorry that we thought you were behind it. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Is that No-Maj still with you?" And she refers to Jacob, who's been in the background helping, and the comic relief, and he's a nice guy, like I said. And he says, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, you know the rules. He's got to go out there and he's got to be obliterated. His memory's got to go. Not killed, but just he's got to forget everything happened. That's the rules." So in the end, they have to let Jacob go out into the rain and forget everything, and he doesn't want to, because he says, "I've grown, I've enjoyed what I've seen, and I'm not hatred of it at all. I like it." And then he says, "Why did you let me tag along to Eddie Redmayne?" And he says, "Oh, I like you. That's all." And you think, yeah, it's as simple as that. It needs to be this. As, "I consider you my friend. I liked you. You were all right." And and that's it. And you think, "Oh, that's it, really?" And you think, yeah, that's all it really needs to be. It's just something simple like that. And it turns out that the other female lead, who I haven't really mentioned much because, like I said, she's wet, but her sister is pretty awesome. She loves Jacob and wants to stay with him, and actually decides to, or wants to forget everything with him so that they can be together. But he's like, no, it's got to be done. This is the way. You're right. I'm not really supposed to be here. That's your rules. I don't want to get you into trouble. And I know it hurts, and he was upset. He doesn't want to do it, but he's like, it's for the best. So he walks out into the rain in the end, and it's quite touching, the whole touching gut-wrenching thing. You think, Christ, he's going to forget, and he does. In the rain, he starts to forget, but as he does, the sister woman, the Monroe woman, comes out with like a sort of magic umbrella and kisses him before he completely forgets. And then all of a sudden, in the rain, he's in the rain, and he's like, what's going on? He looks in front of him, and they've gone, and then he's just like, oh, okay. And he just wanders off. And then you think, oh, that was a sad ending, but you think, oh, you could see it coming, but you think, Christ, he actually did it, rather than say, oh, come on, you can join us. No, he actually forgets. And he goes back to the canning factory, and you just see him come out of the canning factory with the workers. He looks a bit lost, and he's got his suitcase again. And then all of a sudden, you see Eddie Redmayne's character brush past him and goes, oh, sorry, bumped in your way, my bad. And he swapped his suitcase with him again. And he's like, hey, you, come back. But he's buggered off, and he's like, oh. And then he tries to pick up his suitcase, and it starts to rumble. It starts to think like it's going to spring open. He's like, what's going on? And then he opens it up, and inside the suitcase is a note from Eddie Redmayne to say, look, I heard you want to be a baker, and I've heard you do really good stuff, so think of this as your collateral to get the loan from the bank to go ahead and do it. Signed, an admirer. And inside is like loads of silver pieces that come from one of his creatures that he's got in his suitcase. It's like one of the creatures that lays silver eggs, and basically he's given him all the silver eggshells, and he said, look, it's pure silver, use that as collateral. And he's like, oh, and he just looks at it in shock, and then he obviously takes it. And then Eddie Redmayne's like, well, I'm going to go home now and go back to the ministry and finish my book, because he's writing this book called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which is the name of the film, which is the name of one of the books in the Harry Potter books that he has to bring with him to school. It's like a textbook that talks about these magical creatures. And then there's supposed to be a bit of chemistry between him and this other woman that arrested him, and it's really weak and rubbish. But you think, well, whatever. And then at the very end, he goes on the boat and he goes back. And then it goes back to Jacob, and he's got his bakery. It shows him with his bakery. But it also shows that he's made a lot of pastries and cakes out of the creatures. Like, they look like the creatures in his cakes. And everybody likes the fact that they're so quirky designs. And so even though he's forgotten everything, there's something within him still in his memory that shows that he remembers something, even if it's just, if he believes it's his imagination. And then one of the customers, this female customer who's at the counter looking at this creature bunch, she's like, oh, they're so amazingly weird but really nice. Where'd you get the ideas from? And he said, I don't know, they just came to me. And she's like, oh, keep it up. And then he's doing well, he's been popular, and he gets one of his workers to go down to the storeroom, and then everybody leaves the shop. And then at the very end, one woman is left behind, and it's this sister character who loved him and gave him a kiss, and she looks at him, and he's like looking at her thinking, I know you from somewhere. That facial expression where you're trying to place someone, and you think, I know you from somewhere. And then all of a sudden he reaches out for his neck where he got bit by this creature, and then he looks away and looks at it, and he just smiles, and then it cuts out, so it implies that he's got his memory back, and that's really sweet. So again, it's trite, but it works, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I haven't gone into it in too much detail. There's a few other intricacies here and there, but that's basically it. And it took me a bit longer to ramble about it, my apologies. So yeah, but overall it's a nice little film, and again, it's a simple film, but it's a nice simple film. It's harmless, and I would like to see more of these movies. If they're going to make another Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, or another one of these films that links these characters together, I really hope they do, because I liked them. I want to see more of them. It's one of those films where you think, well, on its own it's nothing special. It's more like a sort of stepping stone movie to this franchise, like a sort of let's set the stones, set the pieces into place to get you thinking, oh, okay. And then if they do make a second film, it'll probably go into more character-driven story and more intense stories, because you don't need to know about all the magic and stuff because it's set up. But it's a good setup film. I liked it, and I thought I want to see more. But my biggest problems with it is, like I said, the plot is very predictable. But you still enjoy it. And there are a few plot holes. There's certain points in the movies when you think, well, why are they doing it this way when they could just do that and then the problem would be solved? There's a few of those in the film where you just think, hey, wait, you could just do this, and then that would be, and then they do it later and you think, well, why didn't you do that in the first place? You could have saved us all these problems. There's a few of those in the movie. The chemistry between Eddie Redmayne and the female lead is just non-existent. Like, they keep trying to insinuate there's chemistry there, but it's just, what? There's more chemistry between Jacob and the main lead sister, the Marilyn Monroe girl. That's a nice chemistry there. So why they tried to focus it on the other one, I don't know. It's pretty weak. And that's about it. That's the only problems with it. It's just not very original, and it's not very deep. But at the same time, that's one of its strengths, that it's not deep. And And I liked Eddie Redmayne's character because it is quirky, and at first you think, oh, it's a bit boring, he doesn't say much, oh, they're just going to keep him like a one-dimensional character. But then you find out he's introvert and he's quite eccentric and what have you, because he is, and he does his thing because he enjoys it. And it turns out he was a student at Hogwarts and he got expelled, but one teacher at Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore, name drop, vouched for him to stay. And you find that out during the conversation when he's been arrested and he's being interviewed by Colin Firth. He says, oh, you've been expelled from Hogwarts for these dangerous creases being released. And he said, they're not dangerous. And he said, yeah, there's one teacher, Albus Dumbledore. Why did he vouch for you? That's the hints that you get as to a bit of background from Eddie Redmayne's character and where this all ties in with the Harry Potter universe. But there's no more than that. But it's enough for you to go, ooh, and you might hear more from it later. And I like it. I like him. I like Eddie Redmayne in this. He was all right. And I like Jacob, just a cliched support character, but a lovable one. You like him. You want him to do well. You want him to succeed. You want him to get his bakery. You want him to not forget. And you like the chemistry he has with the sister. It's not trite. It's nice. Well, it is trite, but it's nice trite, if that makes sense. You like it. I liked it. And I liked the graphics. Well, I say the graphics, I'm talking video games. The special effects in this movie were quite good, although very occasionally you could tell when they're like handling the creatures that it's just pure CGI, and like sometimes it looks so good and then other times it's like, oh, they're not really touching the creature. You can tell just when you watch the creature's interaction with their hands, it's really fake. It's only minor, I suppose. Like, you probably wouldn't be that upset about it if you really watched it, but yeah, sometimes the CG is good and sometimes you're like, that was a bit weak, but not, you're still invested in the film, you know. Well, at least I was anyway. Like, it was just a nitpick. And like I said, the chemistry between Eddie Redmayne and the female lead is just rubbish. And the female lead character is a bit wet. It is part of her character, though. She does get a bit stronger at the end, but she needed a bit more depth to her. I think her sister had more depth, and she was supposed to be a supporting character, you know, but whatever. I don't think that's the actress's fault. Again, that's the writer and the director's. Or at least the writer, anyway. And the main bad guy in this film is pretty staple. They introduce him straight away at the beginning of the film. At the beginning of the film, there's like all these like newspaper cuttings they like throw at you saying Grindelwald has escaped, Grindelwald is dark wizard, Grindelwald evil, oh no, everyone's after Grindelwald, oh no, Hogwarts is shutting down, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh god, this is Grindelwald. It's just thrown at you at the beginning really quickly as well. It's hard to read all of the articles. You only really get the head titles, so or the headlines even, so you're not really engrossed too much, but you just think, oh, okay. And then you see at the very beginning like Grindelwald's kills all these people like instantaneously, but you only see like the back of his head and stuff. And then really easily as the film progresses, you know Colin Firth's character is Grindelwald. That's like the only other predictable thing. You're like, he's the villain, you can tell. And the way I told that is at the beginning of the film you see the back of Grindelwald's head and it's like this weird sort of slightly bowl cut blonde hair. And then Colin Firth's hair, although it's not blonde, it has that same sort of bowl cut hairstyle a little bit, and you think, yeah, villain. And then eventually it turns out Colin Firth's character is he's just a transmogrified or a what potion was it that they drink to change their form? I forget what it is now. He just changes shape into Grindelwald at the end. So whatever. So yeah. So even though he was working at the Ministry, he was really Grindelwald the whole time. You gathered that in the film. It was really easily coming. So that was weak. But other than that, it was a nice watch. I liked it. I really did like it. I mean, if I was to give it a rating, I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8 possibly, no more than that, but not a 7.5 out of 8 where I just think, oh, it was alright, could have been better. It's a good film because it has charm that I like, and I like the characters. Eventually they grow on you, even though they're not very well developed, they grow on you, and I liked that. And I liked Newt's character as it went along, or Eddie Redmayne's character as it went along. I liked him. No amazing performance or anything per se, but a nice, believable one nonetheless. Like you just like him because he's quirky and what have you. But he's also introvert. And the sister and Jacob they're nice supporting characters. I like them too. And Colin Firth is good in it as a bad guy. You know, he does what he does. He does what he can with what he's got, and I liked him. He was a nasty piece of work, but not in like a sort of like major villain way, but in the Colin Firth bad guy kind of way. He's cool. So yeah, and the main bad guy, well, I say the main bad guy, the other bad guy, the obscurity guy, the lad who gets beaten by this witch hunter and been adopted, he's cool as well, and he's just a very fractured soul. That's all it's trying to suppress. He just looks freaky and what have you. It's sad, very cliched, very staple, but you feel sorry for him and you really hope that he somehow survives at the end, but he doesn't. He gets killed. Spoilers. But yeah, that's it really. And I liked it for that. So yeah, I know I've repeated myself a lot, but that's because there's not really a lot to talk about in this film. But what is there is good, and I liked it. And it's certainly a lot better than Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2. It's certainly better than a lot of the later Harry Potter films. So I did like Prisoner of Azkaban and The Chamber of Secrets. and Goblet of Fire. Those were good films, but I didn't like the other ones. Are a bit rubbish. And I can't really remember the sixth one. I've forgotten the name of it now. Half-Blood Prince. Yeah, I like the book of the Half-Blood Prince, but I can't remember the film that well. I don't think the film was great. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't very good. But yeah, this is a good film. So I hope to see more of them. At least another one. Whether they're going to make 5 films, I doubt it. But I would like to see another one. And I prefer this over the play. I really didn't like the Harry Potter play at all. Like, it wasn't horrible, but it was just... Ugh, it was too clunky and clumsy. It was really unnecessary. Nice to see an epilogue to the Harry Potter saga, of course, but yeah, it's just like, well, they're trying to make it more realistic in real life. Okay, I get it, J.K. Rowling likes to do that, but it's all about time travel, and oh god, you lose yourself in it, which is why I liked Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. At least I could follow it, and I liked it. You know, but that's just me. I like simpler films because it gives me a chance to, oh, there's the plot, nice and simple. Right now, I can pay attention to what else is in the film. I can pay attention to the characters, I can pay attention to the creatures, the CGI. But when you've got a really complex plot of a film, I always struggle to pick up with it. At least unless I've watched it like 2 or 3 times. And then I can start looking at the details. So simple films are good for me because I can watch them for the first time and get it in terms of the plot and then study everything else. Whereas with complex films, I have to watch it like 3 or 4 times to get it, which is just me. And that's not that I won't watch complex films 3 or 4 times. If they're good, I will. But I haven't done so for a while, I guess, because I don't have the attention span. But there you go. But yeah, well worth the watch. So if you're interested, go watch it. If you have watched it, hope you liked it. Leave me your thoughts and comments on it on the comments page. I'd love to hear it. And that's about it. So yeah, anyway, normal videos will resume. Sorry for this being 40 minutes long, MB, but at least you got something out of me. And yeah, tomorrow we'll carry on as normal. So take it easy, have a good one, hope you're all well, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.